everyone, I'm called Mike Gibson and this is the program Moscow Mosaic. Today in our episode we're going to tell you all about how the capital of Russia celebrates the country's most important holiday, Victory Day on May the 9th. Stay tuned, this is going to be interesting. On today's program, the Victory Day anniversary parade on Red Square brings together guests from around the world.
Glory to the victorious. Happy holiday. Happy Victory Day. Hurrah!
Victory Day celebrations on Poklonnaya Hill. There are loads of people here and a wonderful atmosphere. The most exciting museums and tour programs for Victory Day in Moscow.
The most dramatic and solemn moment of the tour, of course, is when our soldier climbs the steps of the fallen Reichstag carrying the victory banner.
One of the central festival venues in Moscow on May the 9th is Park Pobeda on Poklonnaya Hill. We came here especially to see with our own eyes how Muscovites and guests of the capital are celebrating Victory Day. To mark the 18th anniversary of the victory in the Great Patriotic War, Moscow, like the rest of the country, is adorned with symbols of this national celebration. St. George ribbons, red banners, and replicas of wartime medals are everywhere. Tens of thousands of people fill the streets and parks, carrying flowers and other festive symbols. This May, large groups of tourists from China and other countries have come to the Russian capital to join Moscow's residents in honoring this historic occasion. There are loads of people here and a wonderful atmosphere. From the early morning hours, thousands of Muscovites and visitors to the capital made their way to the main stage set up on Poklonnaya Hill. Everyone was eager to get the best spot to witness the culmination of the 80th anniversary celebration of the great victory. The central event of today is the Victory Parade on Red Square. However, in order to view it with your own eyes, you don't have to actually go to the Kremlin. In order to view the parade, there are special viewing places throughout the city. This year, leaders from 27 countries came to Moscow to celebrate the 80th anniversary of victory in the Great Patriotic War. Among them was Xi Jinping, President of the People's Republic of China, Robert Fico, Prime Minister of Slovakia, Alexander Vučić, President of Serbia, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President of Brazil, and other heads of state. All were present on Red Square during the parade. Before it began, Russian President Vladimir Putin greeted the parade participants and congratulated everyone on Victory Day.
Dear citizens of Russia, dear veterans, honored guests, comrades, soldiers and sailors, sergeants and petty officers, midshipmen and warrant officers, comrade officers, generals and admirals. I congratulate you on the 80th anniversary of victory in the Great Patriotic War. Today, we are all united by feelings of joy and sorrow, pride and gratitude, and reverence for the generation that crushed Nazism at the cost of millions of lives, winning freedom and peace for all humanity. We bow our heads to our comrades in arms who died bravely in the righteous fight for Russia.
The president emphasized the crucial role of the Allies in the opening of the Second Front, which helped bring victory closer. He thanked all members of the anti-Hitler coalition for their contribution to the common cause and announced a moment of silence in memory of the fallen heroes.
A moment of silence is now declared. We will continue to look up to our veterans, their sincere love for the motherland, their determination to defend our homeland, and the values of humanism and justice. Let us hold these traditions, this great legacy, as the most precious in our hearts and pass it on to future generations. We will always rely on our unity in times of war and peace, in achieving strategic goals, in fulfilling tasks for the sake of Russia, its greatness and prosperity. Glory to the victorious. Happy holiday. Happy Victory Day. Hurrah!
The ceremonial procession began with the presentation of the state flag of the Russian Federation and the victory banner. The parade was commanded by Army General Oleg Salyukov, and the Russian Minister of Defense, Andrei Belousov, led the salute.
Right face forward. Step. March.
Leading the parade were soldiers dressed in Red Army troops, carrying the standards of the 10 fronts from the final stage of the war. In total, more than 11,500 servicemen marched on foot across Red Square, including military personnel from 13 countries around the world. The mechanized column was led by the legendary T-34 tank and self-propelled artillery units. Following them, modern light and heavy equipment rolled over the cobblestones of Red Square, including precision missile systems and anti-aircraft air defense systems. For the first time at the Moscow Victory Parade, Russian drones and loitering munitions were showcased. The parade concluded with the aviation segment, famous aerobatic teams flying fighters and attack aircraft, painting the Moscow sky in the colors of the Russian flag.
The group is led by Lieutenant Colonel Vladimir Mardasov.
One of the main museums of the capital, the Victory Museum, is located in this park. 3 years ago, we already told you about this place in one of our programs. But this place is so interesting that I simply can't pass it by even this time. Immediately after watching the parade, people headed towards the Central Museum of the Great Patriotic War. It was opened 30 years ago on the 50th anniversary of the victory. Opposite the museum's main entrance stands the Victory Monument, the tallest monument in Russia. Its highest point reaches 141.8 meters, representing 10 centimeters for each day of the war. It's very important to remember the amazing deeds of our ancestors. I'll never forget those heroes, among whom is my own father, who helped to free Italy. In front of the museum stands the Eternal Flame, a symbol of the heroism and resilience of the warriors who gave their lives for the motherland. It has been burning here continuously since 2010, with flowers always laid nearby in memory of the immortal sacrifice of the Soviet people. Ahead of the holiday, the museum unveiled the renovated exhibition, Path to Victory. The exhibition covers an area of 4,500 square meters and tells the story of the battles fought during the Great Patriotic War and the heroic deeds of the soldiers who defended the motherland.
This is Zoya Kosmodemyanskaya, who was executed by the Nazis on November 29, 1941 in the village of Petrishiva near the town of Vireya. Her final words were, "I'm not afraid to die, comrades. It's a joy to die for my people. There are 200 million of us. You cannot hang us all." Zoya would later become the first woman to be awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union.
The centerpiece of the new exhibition is a set of 6 dioramas already familiar to museum visitors. These panoramic artistic displays depict key stages of the Great Patriotic War. They are now complemented by historical sets and reconstruction films that provide an in-depth look at the major events of that time, the battles and the heroic deeds of the Soviet people.
Germany faces this truly crushing defeat.
That makes a big impression. The new exhibition features many artifacts that visitors both view and also hold in their hands. This, for instance, is one of the main sources of information from the wartime years. Here is the very same newspaper from the 9th of May 1945 with news of the victory in the Great Patriotic War. Here is a real medal from a Soviet war hero with a bullet hole. Interesting. Who does it belong to? Semyon Grigorovich Letov. Mortar crew commander Semyon Letov was awarded the Medal for Courage for liberating a village in the Oryol region in 1943. Wow. But a fatal bullet struck him a year later in 1944. And this is a regimental cannon. It was used both for infantry support and also for firework displays after the liberation of Soviet cities. In addition to exhibits featuring personal stories, wartime artifacts and military equipment, a key part of the exhibition is a wall bearing the names of Soviet and Allied regiments that together helped liberate the USSR and European countries from the Nazis. The amazing sacrifice of the Soviet people is truly incredible, and we must always be very grateful. Moscow is one of the 9 hero cities of Russia. The term first appeared on May 1st, 1945, when Leningrad, Stalingrad, Sevastopol and Odessa were named hero cities by order of the Commander-in-Chief of the USSR, Joseph Stalin. The capital was awarded this status in 1965. 12 years later, a monument was unveiled near Victory Park. Moscow, a hero city. The capital received this honorary status for one of the turning points of the Great Patriotic War, the defense of Moscow in autumn 1941. Nazi forces had already reached the outskirts of the city, but Soviet troops launched a counter-offensive and pushed the enemy back 100 kilometers from the Soviet capital. A major role in this victory was played by newly developed anti-aircraft rocket artillery. The Moscow Defense Museum was established in memory of one of the largest battles in the Great Patriotic War. Today, we came here to learn more about the hardships of the people during the Battle for Moscow. Before entering the museum, visitors are greeted by the artillery that defended the capital of Russia and the legendary Katyusha rocket launcher. The museum was established in 1979 in memory of the capital's defenders and tells the story of the Battle of Moscow. The journey through history begins with the early months of the war, when the peaceful city was transformed into a center for the city people's militia. Starting in the summer of 1941, more than 500,000 Moscow women, students and high schoolers worked to build defensive lines on the city's outskirts. Moscow had several defense lines, almost 1,000 kilometers long. One of the key aspects of the city's defense was repelling air raids. The task of protecting the skies fell to the Air Defense Forces, established in the Soviet Union back in 1918. Their main objective was to prevent enemy aircraft from reaching the capital. At the same time, key buildings and streets in the city were camouflaged so that enemy pilots couldn't identify bombing targets from the air. These large searchlights helped to find German planes in the night sky. And the lead up to the anniversary of the Great Victory, special attention was given to the hero cities. A dedicated exhibition honouring them was opened at the museum.
The term hero city first appeared in the newspaper Pravda in a front-page article about the medals awarded for the defense of Sevastopol, Odessa, Leningrad, and Stalingrad. In the order of Supreme Commander-in-Chief Stalin, dated May 1st, 1945, these same cities were officially referred to as hero cities for the first time. 20 years later, on May 8th, 1965, marking the 20th anniversary of victory, a decree by the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR formally established the titles Hero City and Hero Fortress. The first cities to receive this high honor were Moscow, Volgograd, Leningrad, Sevastopol, Odessa, and Kiev.
The exhibition features graphic and artistic works that depict key episodes from the defense of the cities and their condition after liberation. For example, visitors can see images of a devastated Minsk where fewer than 70 buildings remained, or a photograph of the famous military parade held on Red Square on November 7th, 1941.
On May 1st, 1944, the Medal for the Defense of Moscow was established. More than 1 million defenders received it, including, for example, my grandmother, who defended a military factory and extinguished incendiary bombs. And of course, for Moscow, the significance of the Battle of Moscow is immense. It marked the first major defeat of the German fascist forces.
Another part of the museum's exhibition is dedicated to the Victory Salute. One of its most remarkable aspects was how quickly it was prepared. News of Germany's surrender first came at 2 a.m. on the 9th of May the 8th to the 9th, 1945. And as soon as the information was confirmed, preparations for the celebration began immediately.
The shots were fired from divisional ZIS-3 guns positioned at several points across Moscow. Additionally, signal rockets and fireworks were launched from aircraft. The anti-aircraft searchlight regiment provided illumination for the salute. Whereas beforehand, there had been many salutes in Moscow, but they were all fired using anti-aircraft guns. This time, divisional artillery pieces were used, which made quite a significant difference.
Long live victory. One of the most interesting and unusual points on the map of the Victory Day holiday program is the Moschino Film Park. It's a whole city where various locations from different eras have been built for filming. Especially for this holiday, a new excursion route was created called the Newsreels of Victory. The project creators note that cinema has always reflected the spirit of the times and historical events. So ahead of the 80th anniversary of Victory, they're dedicated to combine tours, film and family activities into a single immersive show.
The tour is based on archival documents and wartime press, newspapers our compatriots held 80 years ago. This creates an engaging experience, especially for younger generations, so they understand how the battles really unfolded, as well as the cultural side of the war. War, of course, wasn't just about military action. Cultural life continued, films were released, and studios worked to boost morale. That's why we decided to create a multifunctional format. There are 7 locations on this tour, and at each of these locations, we trace both the chronological events of the Great Patriotic War, supported by articles from those newspapers, and also we share stories about the filming of war movies and large-scale battle scenes, which is exactly why the film park was created.
The main character of the journey is a volunteer named Nikolai, who learns about the fascist invasion of his homeland and enlists in the Red Army.
Hello, comrades. Where are you all heading in such a crowd? Off to the draft office?
Next, the tour participants enter the actual prop center of the film park, where they help choose a uniform for the hero. Then they move through various locations from the Great Patriotic War period. It all begins in a provincial town where the defense planning takes place.
My squad and I are located here. I have taken command.
Next, the group moves to 1940s Moscow, a versatile set of a large Soviet city from the mid-20th century, where many Soviet films were shot. Here, you can see what the Soviet capital looked like 80 years ago, how buildings were camouflaged, how ordinary Muscovites lived during the war, how they hid from bombings, and much more.
Afterwards, we moved to a more modern Moscow, once the Germans had been pushed back. We remember, of course, the first Oscar our country won for the film about the defeat of the German troops near Moscow. And the finale, the most dramatic and solemn part of the tour, is our soldier climbing the steps of the conquered Reichstag with the victory banner. He's a collective image of the great patriotic war hero, a soldier in whom everyone can see their grandfather or father, and that's why it's such a touching moment.
Another point on our trip is located in the very center of Moscow. This is the familiar Nikulin Circus on Tsvetnoy Boulevard. Many artists of this circus defended their country during the Great Patriotic War. Yuri Nikulin, after whom this circus is named, served at the front in an anti-aircraft battery. During these 9th May holidays, the Victory Music Show is being performed in this circus on Tsvetnoy Boulevard. The core of this performance are the memories of a great patriotic war veteran. He plays a record with his favorite songs, and the familiar melodies transport the audience back in time. It all begins with the peaceful dances in a tranquil town, abruptly interrupted by the fascist invasion of the Soviet motherland. The sounds of enemy bombs explode, and to the stirring anthem, The Sacred War, the entire country rises up to fight the invaders.
Without a doubt, we couldn't let such a date as the 80th anniversary of victory pass us by. There are actually a few reasons why we did this. First and foremost, it's to honor the memory of those who went to the front. There were many circus performers amongst them, and some of whom unfortunately never returned. And there were those who, thank God, did come back. To pay tribute, to bow in respect, to say thank you. And secondly, May the 9th was one of the most important holidays for Yuri Nikulin. Also, the circus and the war were always connected, because during the war, the circus stayed open. Circus agitational brigades were created. Entire acts went straight from the ring to fight. So how could we have acted otherwise?
In the 2-hour performance, artists, acrobats, gymnasts, clowns and equilibrists tell the audience stories from this difficult period in the country's history through famous wartime Soviet songs, Katyusha, Cranes, and of course, Victory Day. All this is accompanied by flights under the circus dome, plate juggling at the field kitchen, performances by gymnast sailors, and the revival of poetry from that time. The narrative intertwines bravery and courage on the front line with stories of love and devotion on the home front. The traditional end of the Victory Day celebration is fireworks, but before they start, the voice of the famous Soviet presenter Yuri Levitan can be heard on the radio. And just like 80 years ago, he will announce the victory of the Soviet people in the Great Patriotic War. The Special Guards Division of the Moscow Military District is responsible for launching the fireworks. This year, the city had as many as 16 launch sites. Thousands of fireworks lit up the night sky over the capital. We have the best place to see the biggest firework display in Russia. The festive fireworks display in honor of the 80th anniversary of the Great Victory lasted 10 minutes. The shells soared to heights of over 350 meters. Victory Day has now come to an end, but the memory of the great feat of the Soviet people will live forever. Thank you so much for spending this day with us. I'm Mike Gibson, and this is the program Moscow Mosaic. See you next time. Bye.